Happy Thursday. Welcome back to our Native Gardening virtual series. I'm Sarah Beyer, Outreach Manager for Deep Roots. I hope you're all well on this gray, wet afternoon, and I'm looking forward to our virtual wildflower walk today. Today's is the 5th program in our virtual series so far. As a reminder, you can find the previous session videos at deeprootskc.org/stayhomekc. Today's session will also be available there in the next few days, and you can visit that website anytime to view these recordings or to share them. And with that, I'd like to introduce our presenter for today, Alix Daniel. Alix is a native landscape specialist for the Missouri Department of Conservation. She has combined her years of landscaping experience with her love of native plants in her work at the Anita B. Gorman Discovery Center. She's invited us to come along today on a walk through the grounds. Alix, welcome.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right? First flower we're starting off with is Wild Sweet William, one of our native phloxes here in Missouri. Hello. We're in our rain garden right now, which is appropriate because it just started raining. And so this is one of the flowers that we have in bloom here. I'm Alix Daniel. Hi. We're here at the Anita B. Gorman Conservation Discovery Center, and I've got Pat Whalen on the camera here. We're maintaining social distance, and we're going to go for a walk despite the rain and show you what's blooming right now at the Discovery Center. So these are all plants that have done well. They're native to Missouri, and they've done well here in the Kansas City area. So this might give you some ideas on what you can add to your garden. Like I said, this is our newish, 2-year-old rain garden. And over here, we've got crested iris. You can see those beautiful little things. And it's one of the more, one of the shorter irises, very well-behaved iris, I would say. And it seems to be liking it in this kind of the mid region of our rain garden. You can see we're gonna walk now to the next flower. The rain just started right when we started. It was a beautiful day until then. But as we're walking around, we're going to talk mostly about flowers, but this is also a time of year when a lot of trees are blooming, which adds some really dramatic, beautiful color to the landscape. For instance, this special tree. Well, this is the flowering dogwood. This is the state tree of Missouri. And it's not necessarily native to the Kansas City region. You're going to find it more south of here. There's a nice stand at Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area, which is about 100 miles south of here. And this tree is very interesting. The flowers are very interesting because these petals are not necessarily, they're not true petals. They're modified bracts. And the flowers themselves are actually inside here, and they haven't quite opened up yet. So these are just modified leaf bracts. It's made to look like flower petals. Now we're gonna move on. Yeah, feel free to add any questions in to the end. We'll try to answer those as best as possible. You're seeing a little stand of our red buds, another beautiful tree that's in full bloom right now. And here we are on one of our creek bed plantings. It's got a really nice combination of flowers in it right now. This purple one is Rose Verbena, and that is a ground cover species that blooms from March to November, and I think it even bloomed into December a couple of years ago here at the Discovery Center. So it's long lasting, it's beautiful, and it's a really lovely ground cover. And then right next to it is a plant that I believe we put these in last year. This is hoary puccoon, which is one of the funner common names of plants, and they both like a dry, full sun situation. So they work really well together right here in the full hot sun next to the sidewalk. And then on the right here, we've got a big grouping of our phlox, the wild sweet William again, doing its thing, spreading nicely into this bed. And I wanted to mention that the Discovery Center is closed to the public, the building is, but our trails are always open, and there's something new blooming every day. So feel free to come down here and enjoy some nature. The beautiful red buds again. Some of you who are familiar with the Discovery Center might notice we've done a little workout here. We've been working on the trails, building new trails, and replanting some areas of the prairie. It's gonna look really good. So we're coming up on our ephemeral bed, spring ephemeral bed. And spring ephemerals are flowers that take advantage of the abundant sunlight before the leaves on the trees show up. So they're taking up that sunlight and flowering and fruiting before the leaves shade them out. So they do all their process in the early spring. And that's what this bed is. Showcases a lot of those species that work really well. And Sarah, I'm hoping you can hear me okay. Unfortunately, we've got mowers working on the Kaufman side of the gardens here. But hopefully they'll be done soon. So I wanted to start with this yellow one. This is one of my favorite ground cover species. This is the golden groundsel. It's one of the Pachyra species, and it does the flowers right now, and then the flower and stem will die back, and it will just be a carpet of the little rounded leaves. So it's a really nice ground cover for your shaded areas. And then over here we have a really special flower. This is wild ginger. And the flower is right here at the base. Let's see if I can get it up. There. See that? Yeah, that little red thing. So the flower is low to the ground, and it's kind of carrion colored because some of the first pollinators that come out during the spring at the end of winter are going to be gnats and flies. And so this color of flower and the scent attracts gnats and flies as their pollinators, as opposed to bees and butterflies. So the next one we have is, and this goes really well with the groundsel, I think. These are the Virginia bluebells. And they're just gorgeous right now. They're about done for the season, but they're still looking really nice over here. And that's one that does fade away in late spring and fades down into nothing, so you won't see it, as opposed to the groundsel. The golden groundsel and the wild ginger will keep their leaves, so they're not true ephemerals. They will keep their leaves throughout the year and act as a ground cover. You won't see the Virginia bluebells after they fade until next year. And then another very special flower. So this is yellow bellwort. It's a very dramatic flower. Also pointed down. The flowers are pointed down. They look kind of wilty, but that's just how they look all the time. They're pointed down to the ground, and that might be another adaptation of looking for your pollinators to come from when they're coming out of hibernation for the winter. They're coming out of the ground and they're going up towards flowers instead of having your pollinators come from the air and down towards you. And in this spot, we have another very special and carrion colored flower. This is wake robin, trillium. Trillium meaning three leaves, 3 petals. There. Another beautiful flower that's got that really deep red color, which is kind of a signature of early spring flowers in the Midwest. And then we have one of my favorites. This is the mayapple. Isn't that beautiful? And it just opened up either today or yesterday just for this talk, so I'm really glad. This mayapple has 2 leaves and the 1 flower there in the middle. And that flower will turn to a orange or a yellow fruit, and the yellow fruit itself is, some people, what? Colonies? Oh, mayapple colonies. Yeah. Are you looking for, if you see a field of mayapples together, it's a good place to look for morels. Just a hint, just a quick little hint. And I wanted this is also a really good time. You might be seeing some of our invasive species try to jump in here too. And you can see we're not perfect at keeping them out, but this is a really good time of year to look for winter creeper, because it can still be seen while everything's still relatively small. So that's winter creeper, Euonymus fortunei, and that's one of the real bad invasive non-native species in Kansas City. And then we also struggle just a little bit, like everyone does, with bush honeysuckle. And that's another one that comes out pretty easily, especially when it's young. This is the bush honeysuckle. It's trying to sneak in there. When it's young like this, it's pretty easy to pull out. This one's been cut a few times, but we'll see. Well, prove me wrong, of course, but that is another non-native invasive species. Keep an eye out for it because it will destroy your native plantings. So we've got a special little plant. This one is bloodroot. It's got this big palmate, or kidney, I guess it'd be kidney leaf. And this one has already gone to flower, and the petals have fallen off. And now this is the fruit. The seeds are in here. And that's one of the earliest bloomings. And then, can we show this one too? Here's another one that's kind of on its way out. It bloomed a bit earlier too. This is celandine poppy, another beautiful little plant that loves a shaded situation and does really well here at the Discovery Center. And then we'll end flower-wise on this one, the tree. This is the pawpaw tree. And you can see the flowers also have that deep red color, and they're pointed down to the ground too. Likely pollinated by flies, usually. And these will grow the Ozark banana in the late fall. This is one of our younger pawpaw trees that I don't think has produced fruit quite yet, but maybe this is its year. So that's a wonderful understory tree to add in for fruit and butterflies. So I think now we'll sit under the tent and answer some questions, if that sounds good.
That sounds great.
Okay.
All right. So first question is from Pam.
Okay.
How do you care for the rose verbena in the spring?
Oh, in the spring. That's a great question. Rose verbena, how to care for rose verbena in the spring. So on some of our rose verbena, it's kind of a tricky one because it looks like the dead growth. Like on some ground cover species, you can pull up the dead growth and see that, you know, each long piece is dead. But on the rose verbena, you have to be very careful because it can look dead all the way to the end where there's still some green leaves. So I would say just be careful with when you're trying to prune that back and getting that dead growth off of there. Otherwise, try not to disturb because it will root down at different places when the stem itself dies back at the main plant. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And if not, Pam, let us know.
Yeah.
A couple of questions about the phlox of wild sweet William.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what it needs? I have a question from Emily about how much light they need. She has some that are in full shade under trees on the north side of a building and aren't flowering. And then the other question is about its presence in the rain garden and how wet it can get.
Yeah. So I will say that there are several species of phlox. We covered the wild sweet William is one of the drier, the wild sweet William is one of the ones that can handle a little bit of moisture. But there is a phlox for every situation. I guess let me put it like that. So there's sand phlox, which likes really dry, full sun situations. There's and now I'm going to get them confused, of course, but there's woodland phlox, which likes the edge of woodland, you know, kind of up against the trees, kind of in a part shade to full shade situation. And then there's the rain garden phlox, which I think is Phlox divaricata, maybe? Does that sound right, Pat? So I will just say, yeah, don't take wild sweet William's a tricky common name because it covers a lot of different phlox. So make sure to, yeah, ask whoever you're buying from. They should be able to point you in the direction of where, which phlox is best for your situation. There's lots of phlox. Does that cover that?
I think so. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next question, how do you dispose of the bush honeysuckle and winter creeper pieces when you pull them out?
Oh, that's a great question. I meant to cover that. So if you are out in, let's see, if you're out in your yard and you're getting rid of honeysuckle, if you put it, you know, like I normally just put mine in my brush pile. No need to do anything extra with it. But let's say if you're out on like a wildland, or you're helping with bush honeysuckle removal, and it's not necessarily an area where you have access to like a brush pile, or if you're not going to be bagging it up. The most common way to do it, and I think this is how Casey Wildlands usually does it, is to, when you pull the honeysuckle out or dig the honeysuckle out, hang it in a tree, high up, you know, like wedge it into a tree so that it dries out and can't then just reroot if it's on the ground. And then, you know, there's a common misconception that honeysuckle can grow back from any little piece of root that you leave in the ground, and that's not true. It's, if you get the main base of the root, there's a really good video about honeysuckle docking, which is just getting the base of the root out, then that's going to kill the plant altogether. So if you don't have access to the brush pile, then hanging them in a nearby tree is a good way to do it too.
Can you talk about the garden maintenance? Do you ever clean out the garden bed, or do you just leave everything to die back?
Yeah, so we it depends on which bed we're talking about, because with this bed, for instance, we really don't do much cleaning out, because a lot of this stuff dies back, and we'll remove like big branches or whatever. There's we have elderberry that grows in this bed too, and it's a little bit too aggressive, so we do have to clean that out every once in a while and just cut it back. You can see Pat's going to show you the elderberry. I cut those back to 2-foot canes, and they're already growing up nicely. But I usually, in this flower bed earlier this year, I cut all the elderberry down to the ground, which doesn't kill it. It just kind of stunts it for a little bit. So we don't do much cleanup in the forest areas, the wooded areas at the Discovery Center. We do a little bit more cleanup with like the prairie. Can you turn and show the prairie section? With the prairie section, we cut and use brush piles there. So we cut everything down and pile it into nice, orderly, sometimes artful brush piles, and those act as shelter for all kinds of animals, usually snakes, but sometimes rabbits and other things. So we leave those until early spring. So we just actually removed those brush piles. So all the animals and bugs that were hibernating in there got to stay the winter in those brush piles and come out to this cold, lovely weather we're having. So does that answer mostly? Well, I guess what I'll say too is that we're big proponents of leaving the leaves, if you can, whenever you can, to not cut stuff back until, if you have your way, not cut stuff back until March. If you do have to cut stuff back, making brush piles is a great way to do it. You just don't want to start a native garden and then go and burn it or mow it all down, because the whole point of having a native garden is that you've got native species that are feeding and living on these plants, and so when you cut them down, you're removing that habitat for those insects and basically negating all the work that you just did. So I suggest artful brush piles to people. Does that help with that? Does that answer that question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Will you talk a little bit about where the Discovery Center is and where on the grounds you are right now?
Yeah. Can you show the pond as I talk about? Like, they want to know where we are at the Discovery Center. So the Discovery Center is located at the intersection of Cleaver and Troost, just a few blocks east of the plaza. And we're located off Brush Creek, right across the street from the Kaufman Gardens. And our building is normally open Tuesday through Saturday throughout the year, and we have special programs on every Saturday, or we will have special programs every Saturday when we open back up. And we have 7 acres of native landscaping around the back here, and we try to show each kind of natural area that's in Missouri. So we've got, our wooded sections, our prairie sections, our glady sections, rain garden areas, the pond. Obviously, we've got some newly installed aquatic plants in our pond. And we're standing right next to the pond, which we would normally be able to show you tons and tons of turtles and frogs and a few mallards. But right now, everybody is hiding.
All right. They're social distancing. They're not hiding.
That's right. They're social distancing under the bridge. Everybody's under the bridge, maintaining distance.
All right. Looks like we have a few more questions. One thing I will say, we've had several people asking about the signage.
Yeah.
Would you mind doing some photos, some still pictures of the plant tags for the things that we've seen today, and send those to me, and I can post them with the video?
Oh, yes, that's a great idea. I will do that.
Thank you.
For sure.
All right, so we'll get that information so that you all have the names and the information that's on those tags. We can probably link to things as well.
Yeah, and we get our stuff through MDC Sign Shop, but I know, Sarah, you have better resources for native signs and that kind of thing. I think interpretation is so important, especially when you're starting a native garden and you might not have neighbors that understand what's happening. I think it's so important to get even a little bit of signage out there to teach them about what you're trying to do by planting these plants.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have some resources for that I can link to as well. So we'll get those all in the comments of this video once it is uploaded in the next couple days. Let's see, do we have time for maybe one or two more? Let's do, can you talk a little bit more about the pawpaw? Lots of questions about pawpaws. How big do they get? Where can you get one?
Pat, show the pawpaw. So we'll show you our most mature pawpaw, and it's the one that produces about 7, maybe 8 pawpaws every year. The frustrating thing about pawpaws is that it takes them a million years to make fruit, and then usually the raccoons get to them before you do. I would say this pawpaw that Pat's showing you right now is about 3/4. What would you say, Pat? How big do they get?
20 feet.
20 feet. 20 feet pawpaws. And there are some really nice big mature stands of pawpaws in and around the Kansas City area. It's a great tree. You need it in the shade of a bigger tree. So it's one of those trees that, what? Creeks and rivers. You're going to find it near creeks and rivers. But wouldn't you say that it stands up pretty well? It would stand up pretty well in a yard under a big tree. The one we have here are under big oaks. And, right? This is a, yeah. So it is a tree that needs the shade of a bigger tree. But, and then also another thing I'll mention about pawpaws is you want to plant at least 3, but probably a lot more, because you need a male and a female to get the fruits. So that right? Oh wait, no, maybe not male and female. Maybe you need pollination from a different tree to get fruits on each tree. So that's why they recommend planting more than just one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want zebra swallowtails,
yeah,
in your yard, plant the pawpaw. That is the host to the zebra swallowtail butterfly.
And that was actually one of the questions that we had. Do you know, are there other host plants that they will use, or are they pretty much pawpaw dependent?
I think they are just pawpaw. Do you know what zebra swallowtails? Are they Asamina? I think they are, and that's the only one that we have that's native to Missouri. I'm pretty sure that is the only one that they will, that's their host plant, which means that their babies can only eat pawpaw, or, can only live off of pawpaw leaves. Not the adults necessarily, but the caterpillars. So yeah, I've had friends who have planted pawpaws and had seen zebra swallowtails on the second year of their trees, which is really exciting. And we have them here too, usually. Pat's showing you some Solomon seal. Not quite blooming yet, but it's cute.
All right. So if you have a question that we haven't already answered, make sure you get it into the Q&A there, and then I will work with Alex to get those answered, and we will send them out to you and put the Q&A in the description of the video as well once it is uploaded. Alex, any closing thoughts or plants to leave us with here?
Pat's showing you a big stand of bloodroot. Can we show you one more tree that's really, really cute right now?
Sure.
That's the sycamore. That's our big sycamore tree, backed with our red buds, and we're coming up on our sassafras tree, our little sassafras, and it is just stunning right now. So I think Pat will leave you with that shot, close-up shot of the sassafras, which is a native tree too, a native smaller tree that's great yard tree for urban setting.
Beautiful with these lovely little green fluffiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice. All right. Well, thank you, Alex, and thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
And I have just a couple things as we close up here. We will remind everybody that we do have some resources on the website if you are wanting to get into planting some native plants during this quarantine time. You can visit deeprootskc.org and click on Find Plants at the top of the website to find some information about local vendors who are either doing mail order or like a driveway drop-off, things like that. It's a really great way to get some gardening done during this time. And so we've gathered a bunch of information on our website to help you find some options for that. If you've enjoyed today's program, please consider making a donation to support this series. You can also find that at the top of deeprootskc.org, the little blue donate button on the right-hand side there. We would really appreciate your support in helping us to keep this series going for as long as we are able. And we're looking forward to our next session on Tuesday, April 21st. We'll have Zach and Kristen Herman of City Roots Nursery and Landscape, and they'll give us some tips on adding natives alongside your existing non-native landscaping. So I hope that you'll be able to join us then. And as we close out of today's session, you should have a survey pop up. We'd love if you would answer those 2 quick questions. And if you haven't yet, please take the opportunity to sign up for our newsletter and keep up to date with events and information from Deep Roots and our partners. Until next time, hope everybody stays healthy. Alex, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.